During this highlights video, we will explore how Board can be used to streamline your budgeting process. To do that, we'll step through 4 processes. The first will be, as a group finance function, we will set targets and initiate the budget. In the second step, we will log in as an end user and complete some budget data entry steps. As an end user, we can then submit our budget to a manager who can either approve or reject it. And the final step is we will look at how Board can be used to manage various versions as well as do scenario modeling. Before we step into the demonstration, a great feature of Board is the ability to be able to embed documentation within the tool. For example, we can place our cursor over a button on the screen and a tooltip pops up which help users understand what they need to do in that screen. Alternatively, we can embed more detailed instructions by right-clicking and looking at annotations that are attached to objects. So annotations can be used and embedded in any object within Board. We can embed formatted instructions, and we can also embed links to other documents or web-based URLs. Let's now kick off an example budget process by logging in as a group finance user. In this first step, we are going to set a target for all of our budget holders. We're going to do that by applying a number of target drivers that are in the left-hand side of the screen to our prior year budget number. So in order to do that, let's set our current year target to be equal to our previous year budget. We can now see that the target column has been populated. In the next step, let's adjust some of our percent growth driver values. So for example, we estimate that our other expenses are going to decrease by 3% this year rather than 1%. Let's save that. Let's now apply the growth rate table to our current year target values. And we can now see that for Business Unit 2 under Other Expenses, that value has decreased by a further 3%. In Board, we have the ability to input 2 calculated fields. So for example, if we want to change our variance percent value for Business Unit 2 under Revenue, we can change that from 5.5% to say 8%, and that's going to back calculate our target value, which is very much like a goal seek in Excel. We also have the ability to do a top-down as well as a bottom-up input. So for example, if I drill into the Business Unit 1 cost of sales, we will see the numbers that make up the total, which is 2.697 million. Here we can type in a value such as changing 942,000 to 1 million. And if we save that, we will see the value roll up to the top. Alternatively, we can go up to the top and we can then input a number such as 3 million, and that 3 million is going to now be proportionately spread to the values that were below it. So if I now drill into Business Unit 1 cost of sales, we can see that 3 million has been proportionately spread. At this stage, we're now happy with the target value that has been set at a top level. We can send our target value out to budget holders. This invokes the workflow within the tool. At this stage, the workflow has now sent an email to those users letting them know that the budget system is ready for them to review. And as the administrator, we can also control centrally the ability for users to input data to the system. So let's click on this button that says Enable Data Entry, and that's going to enable all of the end users to now input to their various cost centers based on the security access that they've been granted. Now that Group Finance has initiated the budgeting process, let's log in as a budget holder and complete our budget process steps. In this screen, we see at the top a drop-down for Cost Center. In this drop-down, we will see the cost centers that we have access to based on our security profile. We also see the workflow status is set to In Progress, and we have a button to submit the budget once we have completed. We then, in the table below, see each of our account categories, but this time we see more detail. So we see each of the accounts that roll up, And when we put our mouse over one of these accounts, we also see a sparkline that shows the trend of the figures across the months. In this screen, we can do data entry. So for example, we can go to the year total for Cogs Commercial, and we can change that from 79,000 to 100,000, and we will see that number spread back proportionately. We can then save that. We also can input at a total level. So for example, in August 2017, I can change the total value from 68,000 for cost of sales to 100,000. And again, we see those numbers spread back. We also have the ability to do mass data input. So if I click on this little button here that says Edit Block, we're presented with another screen. Here we can highlight a selection of cells. So for example, if I wanted to highlight all of my freight costs across 3 months, and then type in the cells to the right hand side where we see multiply, we can type in a value of 1.035 and then click apply, and we see those numbers change. We can also go to the year total, and instead of plugging in a number, we can select one quarter, for example. So we could select January through to March and then lock them. And if we were to now change this total from 104,000 to 90,000, we will see that the numbers are spread back proportionately, but the numbers that have been locked are left alone. If we look at the right hand side, we have quite a number of different functions that can be used to complete data entry. Rather than keying in data at a year total level or a category total level and then seeing that data spread back proportionately, let's use a pattern-based spread feature in Board to spread those numbers instead. In this screen, we see our cost center CC1 has been selected. In the table at the top, we see year totals for each of our account categories. So here we see a value of 98,785,000. If we jump to the bottom table, we see that data phased across months. So we see the total there of 98,785, but we see it broken down by month. The table in the middle shows us the same account categories, but for the prior year. And what we're going to do in this screen is proportionately spread the year total data, or the value of 98,785, across each of the months based on the trend that was in the revenue category for prior year. So let's go to the cell that contains the 98,785, and if we place our mouse over this little blue triangle, we see a note that says click to perform a pattern-based allocation using the prior year actual data. So if we click on this, you will see the numbers at the bottom of the screen spread based on the data in the middle table. We can also do a user-defined allocation. Let's select cost center 1 again, and here we can key in a percentage, or we could have the system calculate those percentages. But an important point to note is that Board has validation features. So within any one of these data entry screens, you can build validations to force your end users to input data correctly. So for example, we have a total of 100%. If we tried to change that value of 7.22 to say 15, we cannot, and that's because Board has a validation message that pops up saying that the spread is above 100%. And as I said previously, it's possible for you to configure any number of these validations based on your requirements throughout the Board solution. Now that we're satisfied with our pattern-based and user-defined allocation spreads, let's return to our original budget entry sheet. In the next highlights video, we will dive a little bit deeper into some of Board's functionality and show you how it's possible to model any of the account line items in the table that you see. This is possible for accounts in your P&L, balance sheet, or cash flow. So for example, for the direct labor line, we'll show you how we can build an employee level budget that is used to calculate things like salaries, superannuation, and annual leave accruals. It's important to highlight that Board can be used to replicate any calculations that you have in Excel. However, a key differentiator is the fact that Board can be used by multiple users at one time, whereas Excel was always developed to be a personal productivity tool. As we're now satisfied with our budget inputs, let's now submit our budget to our manager by clicking on the Submit Budget button. We see a message that says your budget has been submitted. As the workflow has now kicked in, you'll see that the color of the data input cells, which were previously yellow, have now changed to white. If I try to type in over one of these cells, you'll see that this is not possible, and this is because only the manager of the budget can now make changes to it. Moving on to the third step of this example budget process, let's now log in as the manager to review the budget that has been submitted by the budget holder. In this screen, as the manager, we see all of the business units and cost centers that we are responsible for. As I'm the administrator of this system, I can see everything. Under Business Unit 1, we see Cost Center 1, and we see that the status is now submitted, and this was because it was submitted to us by the budget holder. In the column to the left of it, we see a supporting detail column, and this shows that it is possible to attach Excel documents to any cell within a board data view or table. It's possible to attach not only Excel files, but any file type that you want. It may be useful for a user to be able to attach supporting detail, as it may contain an Excel file that may have some more detailed workings that are not part of the board models or the board application. In this case, the manager can edit or review this Excel attachment to understand this extra level of detail. When we click on the yellow selected to the left of Cost Center 1, we see the table below and the chart to the right update. As the manager, we can now review the numbers for that cost center in detail. If we're satisfied or unsatisfied, we can type in a comment. In this case, let's say that we accept the budget. We can save the comment, and then if we click on the Accept button, this closes off the budget for that particular cost center, and nobody at that point can make any further changes except for the administrator. At this stage, the administrator can wait for all of the cost centers and business units to submit their budgets and complete the budget cycle, or alternatively, they can go back to the budget process screen and use the version control feature. In the version control screen, we see a table that in the first column shows our current budget values. So this is the budget that we have just been working on. To the right, we then see 4 separate versions. What we can do is take a copy of the current budget and copy it to a particular version. So let's click on the Copy to Version button and copy it to the most likely version. As part of this copy process, this copies all of the associated assumptions as well. And what this allows us to do is to take a snapshot of a budget at any particular time and then adjust our assumptions, rerun all of our calculations, and then do comparisons between the various versions before we arrive at our final budget number. Once we're satisfied, we can click on the Finalize Budget button, which then allows us, or gives us the choice, to choose which version we want to copy from. So let's choose the most likely version and copy that to Final. I should highlight that it is possible to have as many versions as you need within the system. To the right, we see Formatted Commentary. I should highlight that this commentary is not attached to the screen that you are looking at. It is attached to a certain level or a certain cell within the board database. What this means is that you can then query this commentary and reuse it in any other report within the board database or board application. This is very powerful because it means that management accountants do not need to cut and paste commentary from one screen to another as they would need to do in Excel or between, say, Excel and PowerPoint. This concludes part 1 of 4 in the board video highlight series. We also recommend that you watch videos that explain the importance of a flexible business-owned calculation tool. In this video, you'll see how it's possible to build even the most complex Excel formulas or Excel models within a board application. We understand that a budgeting tool is important to you, but also how much time do you spend reporting? In this video, you will see how it's possible to automate your reporting processes using Board. And the fourth video in the series of 4 videos is how we can integrate your existing SourceGL systems with the Board solution. Thank you for watching this first video in a series of 4 videos. We hope that you enjoyed it and found it useful.